Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We are excited to get started with you today. I have my visionary panel, Paolo Marquez and George Totev, joining here shortly. And you know what? We are just going to get started right away. I'm going to do a quick intro here, and then our experts, Paolo and George, are going to take it away and show you how Trustero can help you with your CMMC compliance. I know a lot of you are up against deadlines right now. So we're just going to get going here. Thank you all for joining us today. As you know, we are Trustero AI, and today we're here to talk to you about CMMC readiness. So as we know, this is no longer an option. It is now a requirement. You can't just self-assess and say that you are CMMC compliant. You have to prove it. That's what we're here to talk to you today. Quickly on our agenda here, we're going to go over the basics. George is going to give you the basics on this, and then Paolo's going to take you through Trustero and Trustero Intelligence and show you how we can expedite the CMMC readiness for you so you can start capturing those government contracts. So without further ado, George, give us the lay of the land here. What's CMMC? Just set the table before we start diving into some technical stuff.
Yes, thank you and welcome everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. So I'm assuming that if you're at this seminar, you know what CMMC is, but just to kind of put us all on the same page, CMMC is the certification or assessment that you have to do. It's a program at the US government in order to get the DoD, Department of Defense contracts. It has 3 levels, foundational, advanced, and expert. Foundational is very simple. In case you have federal contracts data, that is it. Advanced is probably where most of you are focusing on. This is when you have controlled unclassified information. It is covered by the NIST 800-171 standard. Revision 2, very important because Revision 3 is out, but CMMC still requires Revision 2. Probably in the next few months, they're going to switch to Revision 3. But when you submit your assessment, you have to make sure that it's Revision 2. And then it's the expert, which is the high-value CUI. This one is specifically requested by the DPCAC from the DoD. So if you have the level 3, then you know about that. It adds 24 new requirements. Why we're talking about this now? Because there is a published schedule rollout. From now on, starting from November, all of the contracts with the DoD will require CMMC. They start with the self-assessment. So you have to perform the self-assessment. You have to submit the result of the assessment on their portal, on SPRS. And then next year, all of the level 2 contracts will require the C3 PAO. Currently, you have 2 options. One is the self-assessment, and the second one is if there is a requirement from the DoD. Then you go to C3 PAO route. Starting next year, everybody goes through the C3 PAO. And the last one is everyone new and existing contracts will go to C3 PAO. So this is a really 10,000 feet view. That's what it is. Some considerations, CMMC is not FedRAMP. FedRAMP is when the CUI goes to the cloud. CMMC is not for that. But if you have subcontractors that use cloud, then you should start thinking about FedRAMP for them. If you already have ISO 27001 or SOC 2, then you're on a good route. I mean, you started, you have a good foundation for CMMC. It's not sufficient though. You have to go 800-171. Extremely important is the SSP, the System Security Plan. That is the scoping, where the boundaries, where the CUI goes, what are the third party involved, and what you're doing. SSP is really, really important document, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. When you have findings, when you have gaps, that's the POAMs. It is important to identify during the implementation. To identify if you have any gaps, you have to talk to the sponsor, make sure that they're okay with those gaps. And then after that, you do continuous control monitoring, similar to FedRAMP. You do ConMon. Whenever you discover something, goes POAM, figure out what to do with it, and then fix it. So those are the major consideration around CMMC. It's kind of some people joke that it's a baby FedRAMP. Yeah, it definitely brings up your security posture. Definitely there are some things that you have to formalize. You have to be really careful about that. It's more than SOC 2 and ISO. It's not on the level of FedRAMP, but it gets you on that route.
And George, on ConMon there, we talk about continuous control monitoring a lot internally here. Can you just double click on that real quick and talk about why that piece is specifically so important to CMMC compliance?
Yes. Now, for example, again, I'm going to compare it to some more common things like ISO 27001 and SOC 2 and similar. Usually do 1 a year audit or an assessment, and that's it, and you have to prepare for that audit. with the CMMC and FedRAMP for that extension, you have to monitor your controls. If something happens during the year, you cannot wait till the audit to discover it. You have to find it right away, POAM, start working on it. So we all knew that continuous control monitoring is kind of the golden standard for risk management. The problem is that you require people in order to do this thing. And that's kind of the value where Trustero comes in is, yes, you can still do continuous control monitoring using automation now. So that's the big deal.
And what happens if you have the issue and it comes up?
Oh, yes. Yeah, that is really important. So I talked about SPRS when you submit your self-assessment once a year. In fact, there is a criminal liability attached to that. So if the assessment is not correct, if somebody lied on their assessment for whatever reason, there is a possibility of criminal liability there.
Oh, all right. Well,
Yeah.
that's good to
It's
know.
important.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, George, keep it going. We got 30 minutes on the clock here. Well, we've actually got 22 minutes on the clock right now. We're keeping this short for everyone's day today.
Yeah,
Let's
so
roll
let's
through
move to
this.
the next one. Let's talk about the SSP. The next slide, please. So SSP, super important. That is where you start. It is based on two standards, again, coming from NIST 800-171A, which is the assessment guide. That's how you're getting your assessment against the 800-171, and 818, which is specifically about the SSP, the System Security Plan. It has 10 sections. It is very similar to, if you know, the system description in SOC 2, but it's much more expanded. It has a lot of more information inside. You can see you start with the system identification, different type of information that you store, system description, boundaries, the controls, policies, and the plan of action. So as you can imagine, this is a pretty big document. Even for SOC 2, this is a big document. Here it's even bigger. So how do you do it? How do you compose this document? Because that's kind of the starting point of a CMMC program. And at the same time, you have to maintain it. So you can sit down and start writing and start talking to people and go and have meetings and pull data and all that. Now, what we are going to show you is how you can use the Trustero intelligence to assist you in writing this document. Before we go there, and I give the microphone to Paul to actually demo how you can use it for this assistance. Let me tell you that the Trustero intelligence is not like ChatGPT. It is specifically designed and it is targeted towards GRC. So it's AI for GRC. So whenever you ask questions, when you get the answer, those answers are specifically targeted for GRC people. So it is going to give you the answers using the context that you already have, because all of your policies, controls, and everything is in the system. So it's going to use that as a context. But the answer is going to be as if it is a GRC analyst. So it's using all the terminology. It is focusing on the right things. So what it does is when you ask the question, first we decompose the question. We use agentic AI to decompose the question. There are multiple agents there that look at different parts and figure out, they create a plan of how to find the information that you need. It is contextualized with your information. So we put it together, understand, analyze the answer, and then give you the answer. And because hallucination is something that I'm sure everybody is concerned about, we have specific techniques that we use in order to reduce the likelihood of hallucination. I'm not going to say that we completely eliminate it, and that's why we need to have a human in the loop, but we reduce it significantly. So first of all, because we're contextualizing with the right information, with your policies, controls, evidence for those controls, that is one area. The other one is prompting. So when you ask the question, that is not exactly what goes to the AI. This question, as I said, is decomposed and analyzed, and that creates a series of prompts that go to the AI. So prompting is really important, how you ask those questions and what kind of questions you ask. Then the guardrails, the limitation where the AI is looking at. For example, if you ask a question related to identity and access management, it's not going to go into vulnerability management. It's going to focus itself only on the identity and access management. The other thing is that the information that is contextualized is curated. We know that what it uses to answer the question, it's actually good. And the last one is reasoning in reference. So you're going to see when Paolo asks the question, the answer actually gives you the whole reason, how the agent came up with that answer, and reference to the documentation that it used to compose that answer. So it's very easy to first of all, to verify whether that's the correct answer. But the other thing is that asking the agent to do the reasoning help us with reducing hallucination further.
You mentioned Paolo. And
Yes.
Paolo, I know, is chomping at the bit over there to pull the product up and actually show that. You did a great job describing how it works. So let's get Paolo, let's set the stage for him, and let's get right into the product because I know that's where that's what everyone's here for, right? So let's do this.
Yeah, Paulo, let's show how we can use TI to assist in creating the SSP.
All right, let's do it. So what you see here is, as George was alluding to earlier, we have control IM06 for incident management. So this control talks about making sure that all the records generated have enough defined accuracy to meet compliance requirements. You'll notice that under the required evidence column, we're requiring anywhere from configurations to records from the SIM system, and then we eventually ask the AI to test it in the test procedures over here. And so a lot of the controls that gets plugged into Trustero, they're actually, you can set a frequency for them so they could be monitored by the AI on a monthly cadence, on a weekly cadence, you name it, the AI will do it. And so if we scroll down here, you'll see that we have evidence coming in from Datadog, AWS, and other services. We have the AI examine these evidence, and then the AI will actually break down as to where the evidence is incomplete and also where we failed the operating effectiveness check, which is whether or not this control is working or not. So in a nutshell, to summarize the exceptions here, basically we've outlined the AI to examine the records, but also make sure that certain attributions, certain fields are existent within those records. If those fields are missing and the configurations are not aligned with how you define it to be, the AI will clearly cite that, because what the AI does here is it double clicks into each of the evidence items and then reads through it and then makes an assertion whether or not you failed the control. So use case number 2 is least privilege enforcement. As George mentioned, this is one other critical control that is important to CMMC. So similarly, we ask the AI to make sure that we have least privilege implemented within the organization. We have the proper evidence to determine whether or not we're enforcing least privilege. And then we're asking the AI to perform test procedures once again to make sure that the control is operating effectively.
Hey,
In this
Paolo,
part,
that's one quick question here. Is that stuff that the users have to create themselves, these test procedures, all that stuff, or is that happening with the AI?
No, great question. Yeah, so this part, the evidence is coming in from your systems. So whether it's an AWS, Azure, etc. And then all the text that you see in front of you here, the objective, required evidence, test procedures, it can either come from you if you have defined required evidence or test procedures and control descriptions and whatnot, or we have what we call our curated content. So it can come in out of the box as well. The curated content is already attested to by our audit and advisory partners, as well as our legacy clients.
So, Paulo, just to summarize, if you're embarking on CMMC right now, then you can use our curated content, and then you can use the system to monitor your controls. But if you're already on CMMC, you can get your content in and just use the tool to monitor the performance of your controls.
Correct. And that is key, because a lot of times we're inundated with so much task. As a practitioner, we're expected to know everything and anything right here, right now. And you can't just throw bodies at a problem. So why not use AI to assist you? So in this case, to your point, George, we can use the AI, lean on the AI to perform the assessments before C3PAO comes into play. All right. And here again, once you see, what you see is direct feedback from the AI. It is not modified. So you'll see that the AI is saying that we did fail the control, right? Even though we provided all the right evidence items, we are failing the control because, in a nutshell, there's not sufficient evidence to make sure that the rules are being enforced based on the least privilege principle. But more importantly, there's potential risk for over privileging here. So maybe we're assigning too much admin users as opposed to regular users to our critical accounts here, like a GitHub in AWS. So these are all detailed by the AI. And again, you can set this on a frequency so that the AI will perform the assessment on a periodic basis that you state.
Now is the time to kind of lift the hood a little bit and say what is happening underneath. Underneath, we have receptors that are pulling evidence from different systems. They're configurable, or you can create your own receptors, or you can manually submit evidence for the controls. So all of that evidence is gathered, and then we have the agentic AI kind of decomposing that evidence, figuring out what is the test procedure that this evidence goes to, and then executing the test procedures. So there are 3 tests that the AI does here, Paolo. Can you talk about those 3 tests that we are performing?
Yeah, so the 3 test is control policy material difference. What the AI will look for here is whether or not there's any difference between your stated control objective versus what is written in your policy. Evidence completeness is the second check. The AI will make sure that if you say this is a required evidence, have all those evidence items been provided in the context of this control. And then the third check here is operating effectiveness check. So this is what makes the AI act as if it's your own assessor, your own in-house assessor. So the AI will actually look into each of the evidence items, double click into it, read it, and then make an assertion whether or not your control is passing or operating effectively. And all this is based out of the test procedures that is defined above. So again, you can customize this or you can use our out-of-the-box content.
Yes, and this is actually the hardest part, the operational effectiveness, because on the background, what is happening is the AI is decomposing the evidence and looking for specific things that are necessary for that test to align to that test, and then examine that evidence. Because yes, let's be honest, matching the control to the policy, yes, that is nice, but it's not that difficult. The easiest thing probably to do is to check the evidence completeness, and a lot of other systems are doing that. But really,
Yeah.
the secret sauce for us, like the differentiator, is that we can do the operational effectiveness check. So we can actually read the evidence and see if it fulfills, if it matches the test. So that's kind of the power of the AI, and that's why we have all of these systems on the back end and the patents and all those kind of things.
Exactly. All right. So I know we're coming close to time here. We do want to show you one more item. So we have what we call here our Trustero intelligence. So this is your gateway to having a conversation with the AI. And basically, if we ask the AI to do something such as, hey, can you describe the control implementation for my least privilege control based on SSP guidance? So it will narrate that for you. Personally, for me, when I was a C3PAO working on readiness with clients, a lot of times my clients would take anywhere from 3 to 4 hours to write this whole paragraph because there's certain nuances that are included with it. And so here we're basically telling the AI use the SSP guidance. And then as you guys saw earlier, we have the IAM04 control to create this narrative that I will just basically adopt into my SSP control implementation for, in this case, what will be AC06 in SSP.
And if that would have taken you or your colleagues 3 hours to write that paragraph, how long did this, after you asked the question, how long did it take for Trustero Intelligence to identify the correct answer, as well as evidence and sources that you see underneath?
Yep. So this took about 2 minutes for the AI to aggregate the sources, because the way this works, and again, popping underneath the hood, is the AI will ingest data, use the context that you provided, and then think through how it can create and provide you the answer. So that way it's able to reduce hallucination. And that's a really good technology piece behind it. And so you'll see here evidence and sources. This will be seen throughout our product. This will show you that truly our AI will avoid hallucination because it is deriving answers from a guidance or a standard document that you provided, but it will also show you that it constructs the answers based on the controls that we care about here for SSP.
And Connor, the other thing here that I would like to point out is that you can achieve similar things with common tools like ChatGPT, Notebook LM, those kind of things. However, it's not just the contextualization, because yes, you can upload documents and you can ask ChatGPT for things. the trick here is the prompting that is happening on the back end, and also the guardrails that we have, and the multi-agent approach that we have. So this is specifically for GRC. Now, Paul, if you start asking questions that are totally unrelated to GRC, you're not going to get good answers. But if you're
Correct.
asking about GRC stuff, this is going to be spot on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you can even deep dive into the subject matter. So let's say I want to outline the different roles as well as the different individuals that have access per role to my cloud product. Then you can ask the AI to do that. And again, you'll see this site sources component here as well. So this really truly emphasizes what the AI can do in a sense that it is an expert GRC AI assistant. So it will act as if it's a GRC specialist in your team, as opposed to your point, George, earlier, just a regular chat GPT that will throw general answers at you and throw very generic answers that will not be even useful.
So in terms of how we are going to use this thing, essentially I'm going to open the SSP template on one side, and I have conversation with the expert and fill in the blanks in the template.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. And don't shy away from having technical conversations with the AI as well. Because, like, for example, we're trying to build the system components and network boundary of our SSP here. And again, aggregating the data, working with your control owners, and then validating the quality of the answers. That takes a long, long time. This part, it took me like a few minutes to get the information that you see in front of you. And it was able to derive that from the data flow diagram that we built here for the AI. So it did the right answers here. And then if you want to validate something really quick, such as, hey, do I have FIPS 140-2 validated encryption? The AI will do that as well and do the validation for you.
Versus trying to schedule a meeting with somebody from engineering, and it's going to take like 2 weeks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This one took minutes. So. All right.
And quick question from the audience. We got a couple in here. We'll answer them live right now since we're short on time. One, will this work only in AWS cloud, or can it work in a Snowflake database as well? Also, what about ThoughtSpot and Tableau cloud security layer?
So our system works in AWS commercial. We're in the East Zone, the primary system. If you're talking about collecting evidence, we can collect evidence from anything, including on-prem systems.
Thanks, George. And then the next one, or the last question we've got that's outstanding right now, will it work only on GRC product or on any custom data governance tool? Excuse me.
That is a really good question. So if you don't have a GRC product, if you're still fighting spreadsheets and Word documents, you can use Trustero as your GRC tool. On the other hand, if you have one or multiple, you know what, lately I'm seeing quite a few customers having multiple GRC solutions, you can put Trustero on top of it, as in the analytics and the testing layer on top of those GRC solutions. So I guess my answer to the question is, so long as we know where the data is, whether it's in another GRC system, whether it's in the cloud or some kind of a third-party system, and we can get to that data, we can analyze that data. Think about it this way. I have a policy, I have a control to assure that policy, and I have evidence to support the control. So long as we can establish that chain, then we can do analysis for everything. And I know that we are focusing on security right now. CMMC is a cybersecurity focused. 800-171 is cybersecurity focused. But that doesn't stop us from looking at other things. And maybe we should talk about SOCs. Maybe we should talk about some other stuff that is outside of security that we can leverage the same concept of policy control and evidence.
And with 3 minutes on the clock, George, we've got your bonus that you wanted to add in here. POAMs with Trustero and evidence collection via our Jira.
Yes. So we just announced this thing, integration with Jira. So you still use Trustero for your continuous control monitoring. This thing runs on the schedule on a regular basis. You can run it once a quarter, once a month, once a day, whenever you want. And when you discover the issue, you can open a Jira ticket and create the POAM, create the plan, and manage resolution within Jira. Jira is a really good tool for workflow management. We are not going to even attempt to go anywhere near that one. Let's leverage the best of breed in terms of workflow management. Also, Jira is probably well integrated with your workflows within the company, with your engineering, with other teams, with the IT. So use Jira to manage the resolution of that POAM. But at the end, Trustero will pull the evidence that was attached for the closure of that ticket, will pull the evidence and match it and do the analysis and say, yep, this is actually closed. This will meet the requirement of the test procedure for the control, that the resolution is good. So that's how you integrate between the system that does the analysis and control monitoring and the system that deals with the workflow around the solving of the issues, the poems.
Awesome. George, you did that in under 3 minutes, which gives me just enough time to say the final things I want to say. There's a deadline coming up that we know about. There's a deadline. You have to have this ready. You have to have this done. So Paolo and George are here to talk to any of you that are going through struggles with this right now. Reach out to us with the QR code at the bottom middle there. Paolo and George would love to talk to you about the journey you're on with your CMMC compliance and getting you there, because November's coming up real quick here. It's the end of September. And if you can't prove your CMMC compliance, you can't get DoD contracts at this point. So reach out to us. We'll let you know how we can help. We're at the top of the hour. I want to thank you all very much for joining us today. Again, please reach out if you have any more questions about your CMMC compliance. Good luck securing those DoD contracts. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you.